you want to just kind of describe what your family situation is like and introduce yourself and kind of what that looks like?
For sure. My name is Kathy Oretto, and my husband and I uh, were married for 13 years, and I had still do, three adult children. Um, One of them had children, and they weren't in a position, pardon my dog, they weren't in a position to care for their children. So we had the privilege to adopt one. He's the oldest. His name is Jameson. And so we get to raise him. And it's a joy we didn't know we wanted. And it's beautiful.
Sure. And we can see him in the background too.
Yes, we
Um,
can.
how old is Jay?
Jay is 8 years
Eight.
old.
Yeah.
So before Jay came into your life as you being a primary caregiver, did you identify yourself as being a caregiver for him at all?
No, because I was a grandma. So I still don't. I'm his mom now. I started being his grandma, and until you guys told me I was a caregiver, it never registered that that was a role for me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Even through they've had additional children, and so even through the other two boys, and we've had them from time to time, and when we've had them again, I was grandma, so I didn't think that I was a caregiver at all.
Hmm. Just kind of thought this was what grandmas and grandpas do.
Yeah, well, this is just an added joy. Originally, it was just babysitting, but then the babysitting got to be babysitting 4 or 5 days a week, and and that was a lot. But I thought, oh, grandparents just do that. Um, but then it just turned somewhere,
Sure,
and and so we needed to step in and do things a little differently. If that
sure.
answers that question.
Yeah. How do you think the life that you and your husband had built, how do you think that changed when Jay and the other grandchildren kind of came back and you took that bigger role? What did that look like?
Oh my goodness, that was crazy. We had, like I said, we had like 13 years. We had never intended to. We had been foster parents at one time, but that was years prior. And we had sort of just had a nice, kind of very free, spontaneous life. And now we don't. Jay has high functioning autism, so that has played a role in how we function as a family. Um, I'm less concerned about keeping my house neat and tidy and making sure he's cared for. We homeschool. That's not a thing I thought I would do at 50. Just gonna throw that out there. Like
Mhm.
it, and knowing that we're gonna be the older parents when he's in high school. It's changed our life for the better in a lot of ways. It's made us less self-absorbed. It's My husband has decided that he really likes this child. He just didn't know he wanted children until we got Jay. And then just, it was a turning point for him having Jay and then being able to for him in a more permanent way. And then when we heard that we were able to adopt, that was just a whole new kind of joy because he went from being our grandson who we babysat 7 days a week to being our son. And that was just a really big joy.
Before that kind of became official and you knew he was yours and he kind of had to listen to you and you had him, was that a struggle to kind of not know? Is like he's here today, we're taking care of him, but next week that might change or be different?
Yes, for most grandparents in my position that we were in, that is a constant fear, because a lot of grandparents wind up they wind up getting talked into doing guardianship. And so guardianship, I have a friend who's doing guardianship now, and she's going to court every 2 months. Every 2 months, she's being taken. And so there's this I can't think of the word, but whatever the opposite of permanency is, that's what it is. And it's a constant fear of disruption. And for us, we had CPS involved. And so we kind of had safety and security there, and knowing that they were setting the hoops before the kids for them to jump through. And so we weren't having to take that role. But a lot of grandparents, and there are a lot, as you know, Robin, um, a lot of grandparents wind up having to take that role, and taking it over themselves and deciding visitation and deciding, and some grandparents don't even have that. They don't even have anything in writing. They don't even know that's an option.
Mhm.
But for us, while it was unnerving, we didn't have we didn't have the intense fear that most grandparents in our position do.
Mhm. Did you find yourself able to seek resources or seek information from other grandparents in similar situations?
Here's what's so fun to me, and it's interesting. Um, 8 years ago, there weren't any resources. I looked. I was fairly. I mean, I was what, 42, and so that's a fairly young grandma, and there aren't many resources for someone that young, and there aren't many resources back then. I looked on Facebook for groups to join, and grandparents groups that could offer support and help me understand what was going on, and just help. And there was literally nothing. I found one group, it was a national group, and they had one post a month.
Mm,
I thought that's that's not helpful. Not
mhm,
helpful. So I tried to seek out resources. We sought out resources independently. But now with the ADC, you guys are so helpful in providing resources for our grants in the community. It's just amazing to me what you guys
sure,
are able to do.
sure. And do you want to talk a little bit? I know that you have a Facebook group, so do you want to chat a little bit about that, or what that does for you, what it does for the community, the people
Yeah.
that you know?
So because there were so few resources, and I'm not much to sit on my hands, I was bound and determined there had to be somebody else that was in the same position or something similar. So I started a group on Facebook called Second Time Around. Um, and some people originally thought it was like a secondhand, a store
Oh,
for secondhand swapping. And so we had to like make it clear this is second time around grandparents raising grandchildren. Um, and we have 300 plus users on our Facebook group, which is small in comparison to so many, but there are so many out there now that are like thousands deep, and there's a constant stream of dialogue, and there's some groups that are out there now that you can get such incredible resources for adoption. You can get resources for pro bono attorneys. Like, it's just incredible. My little group, it offers me support, and it offered me support when I didn't really have any. And so for that, I am so grateful. And we were able to find some grandparents locally that have the same needs. And the Adoption Resource Center was really helpful in that as well. Um, but yeah, Facebook is a great resource too, to find things for grandparents.
and I'm sure if it's a tough night or a tough weekend or something, and you know an agency's not open or anything like that, you can just go on, post either the struggles, or just post an article you read or something, and someone out there, if they're in New York or California or Wisconsin, will see it
Right.
and
Right.
Communicate.
You know, as Jay gets older, he has more questions about adoption, and we see my son, his birth dad, a lot more. And his brother lived with us last year, but now he's living with his dad, and so that's a lot to go through, and that's weird to have to navigate. That's not something most kids navigate on the daily. So for us, you know, when Jay has a question, maybe I don't know how to answer it, and I can just hop on a Facebook group and say, "Help! What do you guys do?" And they do the same, and then we can all kind of support each other. And it's a real, it's incredibly helpful.
What do you think has been the greatest success for you as being a grandparent and now adopting during this whole process? What do you kind of cherish about this journey, even if it was a little bumpy?
The joy that we get to, the fact that we get a chance to raise Jay, while it's not the plan that we had in mind, it is the most beautiful gift we could have ever been given as a couple. Um, he completes our family. Like it's just an incredible blessing, and it's not one that I would have ever thought, um, you know, that I would use the word "this is a blessing" because it was such a, the first 3 years were so difficult. Um, but it is. And watching him grow every day and watching him navigate, while it's difficult to navigate those relationships, we get to watch that front row seat and we get to help him walk through those things. And that's really cool. I mean, we do all the things parents do. Um, except for we also get to, like, you know, go to Baskin Robbins for dinner because we're grandparents. So
Do you think like you guys having that dual role? I mean, you are literally mom and dad, but you are also grandparents. Do you think that's something that he struggles with, or you guys have just incorporated it and it's just like any other family?
I don't know. What do you think, Jay?
Hmm.
Do you struggle with us being your mom and dad?
Kind of sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I think sometimes he does. Now that his birth dad has had, and my son, my older son, has had a bigger role in our lives, that has really made that a little more difficult. Um, it's tough to navigate. It's tough to navigate. He knows who we are, but there are times my son will say, he insists on calling me Gigi and my husband Grumpy, even to Jay. And Jay will set him straight and say, "That's my mom. That's my dad." Um, and helping, I guess, him to understand his place as the birth dad, not the parent.
Hmm.
Um, that's all, but not one that we can't get past. Jay's in counseling because we know that that's going to be. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, no matter where we go or what we do. I remember the first time he was talking to a friend. He was 5 and his friend was 6, and his friend came out and said, "That's not really his mom." And like he didn't understand, his friend didn't understand adoption, and so he was like all concerned that like we took him.
How do you think that you do with balancing um as being a parent, but then also still with your husband and trying to balance that to make sure that that relationship is solid while still also the relationship with your older kids and now with Jay?
So that's kind of a loaded question for our family. My relationship with my older kids has really fallen short. Um, they're very unsettled that we have Jay. That's not something they're comfortable with anymore, and so that relationship has really. I have 2 older daughters and 3 older daughters and an older son, and that's pretty, it's shaky there. Um, for Michael and I don't know that we date nearly enough, but we send love notes all day long back and forth. um, and we have our morning coffee together,
Oh,
just the two of us. And that's kind of like our time to catch up and talk and just be us again. Um, but I know as Jay gets more, like he'll go to his friend's house and we'll have time alone, just the two of us, and we're realizing, oh, there's like freedom that comes. There's going to be some time alone more and more as he gets older. But we also try to date. We try to go out and go to dinner, or go to movies, or just go do fun things together. Just the two of us.
perfect. Are there any supports or any resources that you have really found to be helpful? I know you talked about the lack of resources when you first started, but
Yeah.
do you think there's any like one particular thing?
There are so many resources available for grandparents that are raising their grandkids. The ADRC is a fantastic resource for anyone over 55. I I cannot encourage enough to utilize you guys as a resource. It's amazing. I Through you though, I have found that is a whole community of agencies that are open to working and helping grandparents that are raising their grandkids. There's the YMCA and there's Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers, Big Sisters. They're all on board. The school is willing to help out. There are churches. We found our church to be super helpful in babysitters, and just coming alongside and being an ear to listen, or a shoulder to cry on. And then, like I said, Facebook groups, those are amazing as well. But the ADRC for anyone over 55, that's the first place you want to go. Well, and the- we're the we're the exception, not the rule. We have adopted one of our grandsons, and that's Jay. One of them was adopted by a family that lives in Little Swamico, and they are just amazing. They're just if I could be adopted by them, I would. They're just amazing. And then my third grandson lives with his dad now, and that has been a beautiful process, not without its hurdles, but a beautiful process to watch him become a dad and really take ownership of that role with his son. I can't think of something that's more beautiful than that. But most grandparents that are in my position have several grandchildren in their care. So we have one. I know families that are in their 70s and 80s that have five or six.
Mm.
Like, I cannot even imagine us go through. Some of them are single parents, their spouses died, or they've been divorced, or I just cannot even fathom. Um, but I am so grateful for the resources that are available and are coming forward and saying, hey, we're here and you're not alone. And I think that is so vital. And I'm so grateful, Robin, for you doing that. Thank you.
Well, and we're very grateful for having you participate in this because I mean, you're kind of laying out your stuff, your business to the world, and I mean, some people wouldn't want to admit my son or daughter or other relative wasn't able to take care of the child, and now we're blessed to step in for them. So, and some people can't do that or won't do that. So, I mean, it's just we're very thankful that you're there and you're willing to kind of work with us and share wisdom and knowledge and experience because I don't think people always know what they're stepping into.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and I think it's important too that as parents, we remember that it's okay. Uh, struggle with mental health issues. They just do. I don't know very many families that don't have at least one person in their family that struggles with a mental health issue of some sort. Um, and some of it is AODA issues. Some families struggle with alcohol addiction or drug addiction, and that's something that needs to be addressed. And if that means that I put all my junk out, then I put all my junk out, and maybe it helps the next family go, oh, hey, I've got junk too, and not feel shame for that, because they need to not feel shame for that. It's
Mhm.
just something people go through, and there's help available.
Do you think that there's a message or something that you would like to share about your journey with maybe other people who are considering it or other people who are in the midst of caring for a child? Like, what would you want them to know, or a little wisdom piece?
You're not alone. There's so many resources and centers for help for people in our position. Don't give up. You don't have to do it yourself. Number one, get rid of the shame, absorb that. Come and talk to me. Come and talk to somebody at the ADRC. If you don't know how to get a hold of me, ask Robin. She'll tell you. But talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. And then seek out help from the different resources that are available. There is a website now that I can't think of. Maybe Robin, you can help me with that. I should have had that prepared. But there's a website that we have now that's open for relative caregivers that will give you a list of resources throughout the state of Wisconsin in Brown County too. And I think that's amazing. It's going to be a fantastic resource. Um, but ask around. And I promise you're not alone. Don't give up. But also, don't be afraid to give up. Like, I know that sounds awful, but be honest with yourself and know your limits, know your boundaries, and don't be afraid to exercise them.
Do you think there is anything else that you would like to share about your caregiving journey or experience?
I don't know what it would be except for being a caregiver for my grandchildren has been one of the greatest joys that I've ever experienced in my lifetime. Being able to bond with my youngest grandson, who just went to live with his dad in June. We had him here for a whole year, and to watch the growth and watch him blossom and open up and discover a whole new world has just been beautiful. And then to watch it happen again in new ways, to watch him open up while he's living with his dad, that's beautiful. But to be able to watch and guide in school and just care for Jay is truly one of the greatest joys we've had in our lives, my husband and I, for sure.